welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down. This is my guitar. If you're just joining us, this is the 4th week in our study of the Red One by Pat Metheny and John Scofield. I am transcribing the whole piece, head right through the solos, both solos, and out to the head of the other end. In the last 3 episodes, we've looked at the head and Scofield solo in 2 parts, so make sure you wind back and have a look at those ones if you want to get a good overview of the piece. But you might be here this week because you want to learn Metheny's solo, and that's what we're going to be looking at. As you've just seen, I've transcribed his synth solo, and I've transcribed the first part of it because it is quite extensive, and this week we're just looking at the first half of it, the first go round of the structure, which is that double A, B, back to A again. Remember, the A section is in B minor, the B section is in E7 kind of area, and then the A section return is in B minor as well. And we've looked at the first part, which is chock full of pentatonic stuff. So there's not much more than just pentatonic and blues scale stuff. For his synth solo, I've used this thing, which is a HX Stomp, which is an amp modeler and effects processor. And I've created a patch for his synth sound, which is fairly close to it. Obviously, he uses his GR300, his Roland, in order to be able to get the sound that he achieves on the Red One. But on here, you can get pretty close. I've used a Synth-O-Matic patch and then also a dual pitch to get the octave above as well. And then I've just popped on a compressor so that the sound kind of, you get a certain sustain. And then on there as well, there's a chorus on there, a slight chorus, and then also some reverb and delay on there as well. The patch is over on my Patreon page, along with the full transcription to the head, the Scofield solo, and also today's part of the Metheny solo. There's also a backing track which I created myself along with my friends Jamie Sefton and Joe Harris. So you can go there and grab the backing track, the transcription, and also any of the exercises from today's video, and the link is on the screen here. On that note, I want to say a massive thanks to Jeff and also to Eddie, who joined the Patreon this week. Welcome, guys. Thanks for your support. And if you want to support me, Patreon is the place to go to do that. And if you just want to do it in a one-off fashion, just to say thanks for this lesson, then there's a link to buy me a coffee below. But equally, I do value all of the people who like, subscribe on here and comment below. So if that's the only way that you can show support right now, if you've got financial difficulties or you don't want to pledge financially, then that's really appreciated by me as well. So don't feel like that means nothing because it actually means more than you think. So let's get stuck into the first half of Metheny's solo. Here's the first 4 bars at full speed. Okay, so right off the bat, we've got this crazy chromatic ascent that he kind of does, or it seems chromatic anyway. It's actually not chromatic from what I can hear. It's very, very difficult with that synth patch to be able to hear exactly what notes he's playing because the very nature of the sound is very smooth, and all of the notes do get mixed up together, and he's got a delay running as well, so it is quite difficult to hear what he's doing. Having said that, from what I can hear, it sounds like he's playing a natural minor scale ascending in sextuplets. So this is it slowed down here. And the B natural minor scale that he's using is this. He's also spanning across to the next position up of the same natural minor scale. So he's not only using this one, he's also going over to here as well. Okay, so again, it's making sure that you know both positions, but you're able to move between them. It's that whole lateral movement that I keep talking about in all of these lessons. So the way that he plays this ascent is with legato, so with hammer-ons and then a slide at the end. Now, as I said, it's very difficult, slowed down, to be able to hear the exact notes that he's playing because of the nature of the sound of the guitar. However, this approach with the sextuplets using the natural minor scale will give you the closest sound possible to that chromatic rise. So into the first 2 bars, we've got pentatonic ideas, and the entirety of this particular 4-bar section is pentatonic. There's nothing else here apart from pentatonic. Here we can see that he's using, again, lateral motion between 2 positions of the minor pentatonic scale. This one and this one. Now we can see that he's using lateral motion between those 2 positions of the minor pentatonic scale. So it would be really good to make sure that you know the 5 positions of the pentatonic scale. So here they are. And then I've also put together a little exercise here for you to be able to play those same pentatonic scales going laterally along the fret, okay? So you've got a pentatonic scale, the same B minor pentatonic scale for each string. Now I've started on the note of B for each one of these strings, but obviously you'll have the same notes from up here. So if you're playing from B here, then obviously you'll get the notes down here as well. So just make sure that you know it down the octave as well. So you'll notice that Metheny moves between very, very smoothly in between these 2 positions very, very easily. Now there you've got that kind of movement between the 5th note and also the blue note. Okay, it's just a little inflection that he's putting in there. And then he's actually moving, you can hear it, it's very slight, but he's moving from the minor third to the major third, so he's kind of superimposing the major third over the top of it. So that's something that you can probably do in your solos just to create a little bit of interest in there. And then he finishes it off. Okay, so it's all, like I said, pentatonic. And you'll notice as well that just like with Scofield, he's phrasing in kind of small little chunks. We've got 8 bars, and he's phrasing in 4 bars, and then within those 4 bars we've got little chunks, little question and answers. So that was a question and answer. Really long question and an answer. Okay, so it's constant question, answer, call and response. And then obviously he's doing that in a 4-bar phrase. And then we're going to see the next 4-bar phrase now. So here's the next 4 bars fast and then slowed down. So again, we're up here. So he's moved up into the next position. And then again, this is where the lateral motion from the last exercise comes in really important. Okay, he's moving up into the next position up here, and then moving up again. Okay, so he's moving up the positions as we go. Okay, but he's connecting it laterally. And again, you'll see that he's phrasing. It's another 4-bar phrase, but he's got these little question and answer things in there all the way throughout. So there's tons of space. And this is something that, again, Metheny's a big fan of Jim Hall. He did an album with Jim Hall, and he's learnt his phrasing from someone that is a master, Jim Hall. The other thing to note here as well is the fact that he's not only using the pentatonic scale, but he's actually using the natural minor scale as well. With that little phrase, he's got the note of G in there, and that's a note taken from the natural minor scale. So here's that natural minor scale again. And so up here, he's kind of showing, that he can mix between the scales. So it's a really good idea to make sure that you know a variety of scales that you can play in a minor tonality. So minor pentatonic, natural minor, harmonic minor, Dorian. The list is endless with minor scales, but those are some of the most common ones. So making sure that you've got that palette, just like an artist has a palette, you've got that palette to be able to use in your solos. So if you hear a particular sonority that is in your head, you can then put that onto the fretboard if you've got the language to be able to do so. So there, Metheny, he heard something. He heard that particular, that kind of sweet natural minor kind of sound more than the hard-edged pentatonic sound. And so he was able to put that G in. And then obviously return to. Returned back to their kind of hard-edged, bluesy pentatonic scale. The other thing to make sure that you've got, kind of nailed down here is the little kind of melismatic turn that we've got here, because he uses this an awful lot in here. So it would be a really good idea to make sure that you've got that nailed down. So here's that little cell that he's doing, the little turn slowed down. Okay, so moving into the B section, this is where we go to an E7 area. So here he's using an E Mixolydian scale here. The Mixolydian scale from our explorations into modalism from the last series. The Mixolydian scale is a scale built off of the fifth note, the fifth degree of the A major scale. So it's using the notes of the A major scale but built on the fifth degree. So we start on the fifth degree. So that gives you this. And so it gives you the notes of E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D natural rather than D sharp. Almost played a D sharp there. And then E, and obviously we're going up further. Okay, and he's using two positions for this. So he's using this position here, which we kind of call in the cage system the A position. Okay, there because of the A shape that it kind of outlines. And then we're also using the G shape here as well. Okay, so he moves between those. And it's good to notice here that he's really kind of focusing around chord tones. So there's the G sharp and the E. And then down to the B. So he actually outlines all of the triad there, all of the E triad. And he's including the D in there as well. And, nice F sharp, the 9. Kind of focuses on that 9 for a little bit. It's really nice that he does that. But, he is focusing, rather than just kind of running the scale, he is focusing in this particular phrase on some of the chord tones. And then moves to outline again that more of that E7 sound. So again, it's more kind of hard-edged bluesy. And he's using that kind of mute. Okay, so that mute to kind of give a bit of a kind of funky edge to it. Okay, and then he does actually run the scale, but in a really clever way. So he's actually mixing the E Mixolydian and then also a C Lydian scale. Okay, so the next chord, he actually refers to the C major 7 from the head. Scofield doesn't do that in his solo, he just stays on the E7 for the full 4 bars. Metheny actually adds in the C major 7 at the end of this section. And so he does a really clever thing, runs up this E Mixolydian scale. Okay, and then converts into the C Lydian really smoothly. So he doesn't stop. Just make sure that you remember C Lydian is the note that is built on the 4th degree of a scale. So in this case, we're looking at the G major scale as the parental scale. So G major has the notes of G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So here, when we play our C Lydian scale, we've got the notes of C, D, E, F sharp instead of F, G, A, B, C. Okay, it's really, really cool how he does that. So it's worth making sure that you know the C Lydian scale. So here it is. And he's using two positions of the C Lydian scale, and he's using it laterally up the fret. Okay. The rhythm here is slightly odd on the record. The drummer, Bill Stewart on there, is playing some rhythmic displacement on there. He's kind of doing this da 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 da. So he's using these kind of like 3s over 4s there. And Metheny is he's lining up with his cymbals. So if you're playing along with the record, line up with his cymbals on there. It's very, very difficult to actually kind of notate this onto the page because they are bending the time ever so slightly. So on the Guitar Pro, it might not sound exactly as it does on the record, but it's very close. And essentially, you've got this kind of across the beat feel, and I've transcribed that as quaver triplets on there, starting on the second quaver and going through. You might be able to get closer yourself by, kind of adding in all the ever so slight tiny little rests on there. But I just think for ease of actually learning this tune, learning the notes that are in there and the concepts behind it, I think this is possibly the easiest way to read it. So one way of practicing kind of moving between two scales is just to do it very slowly and decide where you're going to change. So if we were going to continue on with that E Mixolydian scale, we go to a C sharp, but we decide to go to a C natural because that outlines the C major 7 chord underneath. And if you notice, he does it ever so slightly before the C major even hits. So he's anticipating. Yeah, the tips here is basically just to make sure that you know where you're going to change and which note you're going to change on. It's probably a good idea to make sure that you change at a point where it's very clear that you're going into a new scale. So for instance, in this case, instead of going to the C sharp, which would be naturally occurring in the E Mixolydian scale, he goes to the C natural, which is naturally occurring in the C Lydian scale. On to the last 4 bars. In these last 4 bars, it's all built around one phrase, which is ever so slightly changed. So he's in this area of the minor pentatonic scale, and then he's using that as his bass, and then the idea that he's playing with is kind of around this area. So it's around that kind of area here, and he's varying it every single time. So the phrase that he starts off with is, and then continues on with bringing in that natural minor note, the G natural there. And then another phrase very similar, finishing off very, very clearly in an almost kind of cadential format there, very clearly finishing off the phrase. So you can see that the idea changes 3 times. He develops the idea and then finishes it very, very clearly, cadencing it at the end. Okay, it's essentially like he's going. Okay, so it's a very, very clear ending there. So for your own solos, if you want to get a mileage out of a line rather than kind of constantly having to think of brand new information, it's a good idea to make sure that you take one cell, one tiny little idea, and then try and develop it, adding in maybe an extra note like Metheny does here with the G natural, or just using a different position of the minor pentatonic to kind of span into like Metheny does here when he goes up to the F sharp up there, okay? Or placing the little melismatic line in a slightly different place in the bar. All of this stuff gives you mileage with your line. And Metheny manages to span this idea across 4 bars. So you can see that he's an absolute master of it. So with the backing track, decide on a tiny little idea, maybe compose something, and then see how much mileage you can get out of just that one tiny little cell. I would make sure that it's no longer than about 2 or 3 beats in length, and then try and develop it over the next 3 bars, and then add a nice little cadence at the end. So thanks for watching if you got this far. Next week we'll be finishing off the solo sections with the second half of Metheny's solo, and then the following week I'll do the entire tune by adding in the head at the end. Remember that you can get the transcription, all of the exercises, and the backing track which I created myself over on the Patreon page, which is this link here. And if you want to support me in a one-off fashion, then you can buy me a coffee and the link is below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to get updates on when the next video drops, and also hit the like button because I think that helps people to be able to see it with the way that the algorithm works. Please do let me know if you've got any feedback or you want to add anything extra that I didn't cover in here. The comment section is a good place to do that. And other than that, happy practicing, and I'll see you next week. Bye.